I know.
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good.
You're not well rested. I know that much.
I won't even try to. Chairman, we have enough to. We have enough for.
Welcome to this March 23rd, 2020 meeting of the North Carolina State Board of Education. I'm Eric Davis, Chair of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. I now ask Dr. Townsend Smith to call the roll to determine that we have a quorum of the board participating, and a note to all listening that a quorum is 7 members. Dr. Townsend Smith?
Yes, sir. Mr. Buxton,
Here.
Dr. Oxendine,
Here.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Here.
Mr. Keenan, Mr. Hall,
Here.
Dr. Tipton Rogers,
Here.
Ms. White,
Yes,
A
ma'am.
participant has joined the conference.
Mr. Ford,
Here.
Lieutenant Governor.
Here.
So, Mr. Chastain, did you join? Treasurer Falwell, did you join? Vice Chair Duncan,
Here.
Chair Davis,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. Board members, you've seen the agenda for this March 23rd meeting and had the opportunity to review it. I ask if there are any requests for changes to the agenda. And hearing none, I request a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moves, Mr. Ford.
Motion by Mr. Ford, a second.
Second by Ms. Kamnitz.
Second by Ms. Kamnitz. Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote to approve the March 23rd, 2020 agenda?
Yes, sir. Mr. Buxton,
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine,
Yes.
Ms. Kamnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers,
Yes.
Ms. White,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. We have an approved agenda. I note for the record, the board will take a roll call vote on items requiring action on the agenda at the end, towards the end of our meeting. Board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Before we proceed to our agenda items for today, I'd like to address our current health crisis. Our over 1.6 million students, our educators, and communities continue to adjust to the COVID-19 pandemic. Last evening, COVID-19 cases reached over 300 in North Carolina. The continued risk of community spread, we continue to work closely with Governor Cooper, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Public Instruction to take the necessary steps to maximize access to quality instructional experiences for our students through the remainder of this year. Ensuring that all school employees can continue to work safely with pay throughout this crisis. While closing schools for instruction was a difficult decision that has disrupted the lives of our students, teachers, and families, it was the correct decision. We appreciate the dedicated work of teachers, administrators, and all personnel who have stepped up as first responders on the front line, ensuring that students are fed and engaged academically and with social, emotional supports since March 16th for the Governor's Executive Order 117. This week alone, several school districts and charter schools have continued and or launched virtual and remote learning opportunities. Teachers have ensured that students' social emotional learning needs are met by sending daily video messages, writing letters, phone calls, and other creative measures to stay connected to students and to share with them lessons. Meal deliveries for our students have grown from 200,000 to over 571,000 per day, with more than 1.6 million meals delivered since the Governor's order. Efforts to raise student connectivity continue to increase, driven by the ingenuity and persistence of education leaders, the private sector, and the generosity of many donors. Moreover, among many critical responses, the Department of Public Instruction has launched a website to deliver timely, relevant guidance, resources, and information to our districts and schools. These tireless efforts are but a few examples of the heroic work underway in districts and schools across our state. We thank you for this tireless work, especially over the past 2 weeks. This time, while difficult, must be used as an opportunity to shift our current vision of education. As we continue to serve our students, we must persistently work to guarantee that the students in our state have equitable experiences, that the needs of the whole child are met, as outlined our adopted guiding principles in the approved strategic plan, and to uphold our constitutional promise to a sound basic education. We will continue to work diligently with our partners across the state and federal government to help keep our children safe and healthy. While we do not know how this pandemic will ultimately impact our lives, or what more we will be called upon to do, we know with certainty that the resolve and dedication of North Carolinians across our great state will continue to rise to the challenge. No matter what uncertainty confronts us, we stand ready, committed to care for our neighbor and our neighbor's child as we care for our own, in advancing the education of all North Carolina students. We'll now proceed to our committee reports, and I call on the chair of the Student Learning and Achievement Committee, Mr. Buxton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm joined by Dr. Olivia Oxendine with the Student Learning and Achievement Committee. We have one item today. It's an action item related to the U.S. Department of Education's testing and accountability waiver. I'm going to call on Dr. Tammy Howard to present that, not only the waiver request that we are able to submit and the department's recommendation that we do so, but also to be available for any questions from the board. Dr. Howard?
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Buxton. So on Friday,
Secretary DeVos of the United States Department of Education released an expedited one-year waiver that all states may apply for that address administering assessments and accountability for the 2019-20 school year. In the executive summary, you can see that it is noted that this waiver is due to extraordinary circumstances created by the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting school closures. It is also noted in the executive summary that the school closures are in response to extraordinary circumstances for which a national emergency has been duly declared by the President of the United States under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, and that this action will protect the health and safety of students, staff, and our communities. So therefore, given the context of where we are as a nation with this pandemic, the Secretary is moving to allow all 50 states, as I said, to apply for this waiver for both assessment for the current school year and the accountability. And this is merited due to the fact that all assessments must be administered under conditions that ensure that the data is valid and reliable, and we cannot do that at this time. And likewise, therefore, there would not be any data available for accountability measures for the 2019-20 school year. So in the executive summary, we have listed the very specific areas that the waiver addresses. As we have said, the assessment, first and foremost, and then the accountability and school identifications that are requirements in federal law. So this is those annual, meaningful, differentiated designations for each public school in North Carolina. And then as part of the North Carolina report card, there are a series of items that are also being waived through this process: the accountability system description, the assessment results, the other academic indicator results, which include things like ACT, math course trigger, growth, the English language proficiency assessment results, the school quality or student success indicator results, the progress toward meeting long-term goals and measures of interim progress, the percentage of students assessed and not assessed, the number and percentage of students with the most significant cognitive disabilities taking an alternate assessment, and lastly, with respect to all the waive requirements in this section, information showing how students in a local education agency in each school respectively achieved on academic assessments compared to students in the state and the LEA. It's important to note, however, that in submitting this waiver, the state is also affirming that it will fulfill two assurances. The first, that any school that is already identified as a targeted support and improvement school or comprehensive support and improvement school will maintain that designation going forward into the 2020-21 school year and will continue to receive support and intervention consistent with our state ESSA state plan. And the second one is that the state education agency will provide the public and all LEAs in the state with notice of the opportunity to comment on the request on the waiver. Typically, this process, the public comment period, precedes any waiver. But given the circumstances that we have before us, the U.S. Department of Education is allowing the waiver to proceed immediately and occur concurrently with a comment period from the public. And the comment period will not uphold the approval of the waiver. It is actually anticipated by the U.S. Department of Education that if the state uses the U.S. Department of Education provided waiver, that approval will be granted within one business day. However, we do have to provide this assurance that we will also get public comment on the waiver. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Howard, thank you, and appreciate the concise but thorough summary. Board members, just so you know, you've got a document on the e-board that is the actual waiver template. You can see it's short and what it is we'd submit. Let me open it up for any questions about submitting a waiver along the lines that Dr. Howard just outlined.
Mr. Buxton, this is Olivia with a quick question.
Dr. Knott, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Howard, for that very concise report. My question has to do with this waiver, as it might suffice for any kind of exemptions that we would need from the General Assembly pertaining to any testing that's in legislation.
Dr. Howard, I just want to note for the board, Chairman Davis has already opened up some of those discussions with members of the legislature and let them know that in the wake of this submission, we'll be coming to them with a full listing of state-level accountability requirements, ties to bonuses, et cetera, that we would request waiver from consistent with this waiver. So, Dr. Howard, you may have some more specific comments on that. I just want to make sure the board understood those discussions were underway.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Buxton, and I do not have further comment. I think that is what would be expected.
Thank you.
Other questions from members about issues related to waiver of testing and accountability? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, that closes our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. We'll proceed immediately to action on this matter. I request a motion for approval of SLA 1 Federal Accountability Waiver Request.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Buxton. Is there a second?
I second, Olivia.
Second by Dr. Oxendine. Any questions on this motion? Hearing none, Dr. Townsend Smith, will you call the roll to capture the vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. Chemnitz?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you. Board members, this concludes our agenda items for today's meeting. I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Mrs. White.
Motion by Ms. White, second by
Wendell.
second by Mr. Hall. Dr. Townsend Smith?
Yes, sir. Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. Chemnitz?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Take care.
Thank you.
Olivia Oxendine.
Has